I can't tell if it comes through on camera, but if I look a little tender, I got sunburnt. I probably shouldn't have went on my bike ride today, but I did anyway. It was too nice to stay inside. Welcome back once again to a new book review. Now, the book we are going to be talking about today is The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. Now, this is a cozy fantasy standalone. So, my review will talk about spoilers for this book, though I'll try my best not to spoil the whole book because honestly, I really enjoyed myself with this book. So, if you're looking for a standalone that you could read in one sitting, I highly recommend this one. So, I don't want to spoil it for you if cozy fantasy is your thing and you struggle to find fantasy standalones. So, with that being said, let's get into the characters of this book. The characters of this book are Keela, and she is a closed-off bookworm who, after tragedy struck her library, goes back to the island she grew up on before her parents came to the city. Then we have her best friend, who, by the way, is a spider plant that can talk. So much fun. Kaz. And he's kind of her assistant and has worked with her in the library and is her friend through this transitional period of going back to live in her family's island. Then we have Loran, the kind of bit of a nosy neighbor who doesn't respect property lines, but it ends up working out, along with a bunch of other people that she gets introduced to throughout trying to open herself up on the island. But with that being said, let's get into my thoughts on this book. So, I first heard about this book because my Nook, I get emails all the time about this book is coming out or that book's coming out. And this just happened to be one of the books that was coming out that I checked my email for. And I liked it, so I put it on my Barnes & Noble wish list, and my grandma ended up getting it for my birthday a while ago. And honestly, reading this book, it is so much fun and it is so nice to read. Like, there were parts where I caught myself smiling or laughing out loud because it was just that fun. Because you have this shy, closed-off bookworm who just wants to protect the books that she had to save from the library because it was being burned down. Because this takes place in a fantasy world where all of that stuff is common. You have mermaids, you have merhorses, you have Keela herself has blue skin, you have centaurs and things like that. This is set in a fantasy world. And in this world, we find out that for whatever reason, the current emperor of the kingdom, or the empire, sorry, not kingdom, has forbade that magic only be used by authorized sorcerers and higher up nobles. He essentially took magic away from the people. Well, after Keela's family had moved away from Coltree, the name of the island, she ends up taking up refuge in one of the city's libraries and kind of working there as well as living there. She's happy doing so, away from all the people of the city and the busyness and all of that, until, fed up with the emperor's decree that magic is only for the higher up in society, there is a revolt that takes place, and she ends up having to flee the library, rescuing as many books as she possibly could, some of which are spell books, because some revolutionaries decided to burn the library, which Keela just can't fathom, because she is very much someone that protects books and doesn't like to break spines and all of that. So she and Kaz flee the library back to the island of Coltree that her family left when she was 9. And it just becomes her trying to find her place in this island and with the island people. It's very much a story of coming out of your shell and a found family story, because Keela's parents are not in the picture anymore because they both died. And she's been tucked up in a library ever since then because she was living and working there. So she was pretty much away from people for years until coming to Coltree. So it's about her finding her place in Coltree and finding family in Coltree. Like, it's a found family cozy fantasy. But it's called the Spellshop because Keela decides to turn her family's cottage into a cottage/jam shop. But the jam shop is actually hiding the fact that she is selling remedies to help out the island. She starts out doing this as a way to like make sure she has an income to feed both herself and Kaz. He doesn't eat, but he needs soil refreshments and stuff because he is a plant. But that's mainly why she started this jam shop / spell shop, is because she thought that would be her way to make money. She didn't want to interact with the islanders. She wanted nothing to do with anyone. She wanted them to stay away from her, aside from the shop, and stay away from her books and spell books. But the islanders don't really let her do that. They kind of pull her out of her shell, mainly being Loran, who does not respect property lines. He came over the first day she was there and left him some cinnamon rolls and some eggs, and then he saw smoke coming from her chimney when she decided to try and cook and was like, gotta help. And it was just a wholesome story and a good read, and there are events that happen that keep the story interesting to where you're not sitting there like, okay, I'm getting kind of bored now. You're sitting there like, oh no. And to that point, there's not really a villain of the story either. Unless a storm counts as a villain, and a grumpy old man who just wants to watch the world burn. Like, there was one very grumpy old man who just kind of badmouthed everybody, and you're like, would you shut up? Just shut up. Just shush. Go eat your pastries and leave everybody alone. But other than that, there's not really a villain in this. And it's just so much fun to read, and the world feels nice, and the stakes are there, but they're not there by a person or anything. I just think if you're struggling to find a good fantasy standalone, because I know it's hard to find fantasy that isn't part of like a 5 to 9 book series anymore. If you're looking for a quick, cozy read, I highly recommend this one. It's a good time, and I think it's one I'm going to keep for a long time because it'll be like a good palate cleanser after big adventurous fantasy or hard mysteries. It was such a good time, and I was smiling all throughout the book. So if this sounds like it's up your alley, I don't think you'd waste your time giving it a try. So I've been talking long enough. I can't tell if it comes through on camera, but if I look a little tender, I got sunburnt. I probably shouldn't have went on my bike ride today, but I did anyway. It was too nice to stay inside. And this summer hasn't been the best weather-wise. So I'm about as pink as my shirt. So I'm going to stop talking now. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.